Are you pregnant, breastfeeding, or trying to get pregnant? In this video, I interviewed Julie, the CEO of a company named Needed that specializes in creating prenatal nutrition that allows you to not only meet your and your baby's needs throughout pregnancy, but also thrive through getting the optimal amount of nutrition. So it really is kind of hard and confusing and complicated to know what prenatal to take and why, and what nutrients are really needed and what nutrients may be lacking in a lot of the prenatals out there. Another thing to keep in mind, and we'll discuss this a little bit more in the interview, is to make sure that these companies have been third-party tested and that they are pure and potent. So making sure that that is there. One way of doing it, I talk about a lot in one of my videos that you can check out here, where I talk about what 3 criteria to look for the best prenatals. Before we get into it, make sure you click that bell icon so you don't miss any of our future videos. And as always, if you like the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Also, join the thousands of women just like you over in our Facebook community. Hi guys, I'm here today with Julie Sawaya. She will be talking to us a little bit about prenatal health, prenatal nutrition, women's health, fertility, and all that kind of good stuff. I will let her introduce herself to us today, and we'll just get going. So, hi, Julie.
Hi, thank you for having me. So I'm Julie. I am the co-founder of Needed, which is a perinatal nutrition company focused on optimally nourishing women before, during, and after pregnancy. And we are based in LA, and we're a women-founded company. My co-founder, Ryan, and I started Needed, both of us being lifelong nutrition nerds who had worked full-time in a different career, but pursued nutrition certifications really as a passion area. I come from a family of medical doctors, and my dad is type 2 diabetic. And so from a really early age, I understood the importance of nutrition and how it's often kind of learned or taught or focused on outside of the medical paradigm rather than as part of it. So that was a really key insight for me early on. And anyhow, Ryan and I met when we were in business school as friends and next door neighbors, and quickly realized through our own nutritional testing that we were both seriously deficient in key nutrients that are really important for pregnancy, as well as for overall women's health, for hormone balance and energy and mood. And it was really surprising to us because we both put so much attention into what we were eating and even taking supplements, and realized through digging into the research that we were really far from alone, that 97% of women in the perinatal life stage take a prenatal vitamin, and yet 95% have nutrient deficiencies because most prenatal vitamins are just not designed to optimally nourish women. So we set out to redesign a prenatal vitamin and also the other supplements that women need to be optimally nourished in this life stage. And we now, fast forward 5 years, we now have a full line of products that meet the needs of women before, during, and after pregnancy, and even beyond, into general women's health. And then also a line of products for men that are awesome for general men's health, but also specifically supportive to preconception health, as men contribute 50% of a baby's DNA, even though a lot of the burden of pregnancy is placed on women. Men have a role in conceiving a healthy baby too. So I'd like to include all the family members when it comes to the life stage.
Yeah, and so you mentioned that you both figured out that you were deficient. So how did you figure that out? Is there like testing?
Nutrient testing. Yeah, so this was back in 2016 when at-home nutrient testing was starting to take off, and we just did like the finger prick nutrient testing for a couple key nutrients like vitamin D and B12 and omega-3. And we were really low, like exceptionally low. For me, part of it, I think, was that for many years I was vegan and initially felt awesome and had more energy because I was incorporating more plant-based foods and fewer refined foods. But with time, that depletion caught up to me. And, those 3 nutrients in particular that I mentioned are very, very hard to meet sufficiency in if you have any kind of a restricted diet. And then in pregnancy in particular, at the time I was not yet pregnant or trying to conceive, but what we see in pregnancy is that needs are so heightened that it is extremely hard to meet your needs through diet alone, even if you incorporate really nutrient-dense animal foods in addition to plant-based foods. So Ryan and I had different diets, which was interesting, and yet very similar lab results. Both of us were really deficient in those nutrients. And then corroborated that through basically interviewing. We used the second year of our business school experience to interview hundreds of nutrition and health practitioners and moms, understanding how do you choose supplements, and what are you looking for when it comes to practitioners? What are you looking for in supplements to really meet women's needs? And what we kept hearing again and again was, well, I recommend this practitioner grade brand, but then also these 5 other supplements on top of it, because even the best practitioner grade brands had very low amounts of choline and not enough vitamin D and about half of the B12 that practitioners wanted to see. And the list just kept going on and on. It was clear that even in the most comprehensive end of the supplement market, there were huge gaps, and a lot of brands would have a prenatal vitamin but hadn't updated the formulas in 10 years. They weren't based on the latest clinical research. They had fallen behind the curve, and we really wanted to design a line of products that were based on not only the latest clinical research as it evolves, and to update our products as more research came about, but also you likely know this very well, but there are also huge gaps in women's health research. And, it's really important to rely on the clinical research when it's available, but it's also important to recognize where the research is lacking. Exactly. And so to overcome this, we tap into the insights from practitioners like yourself that are day in and day out regularly testing women's nutrient and hormone levels. And those insights are just so important to know in the year 2022. What do women, who are living in this modern world, what do they actually need to reach sufficiency levels? Not just to avoid, a disease condition like spina bifida or scurvy, but, on the other end of the spectrum, what do you need to see people in an optimal nutrient level range? And then, of course, there's so many physiological benefits when you are in that optimal end of the spectrum, from increased energy to better mood to in pregnancy, more regulated blood sugar, and the list of benefits just goes on and on. But objectively, the markers of nutritional abundance are, what do your lab results say?
Yeah. So I have a few questions on that. So you mentioned you focus on having optimal amounts of these micronutrients.
Yeah.
So it makes me think of what we call the RDA. That is how the range that we get told is recommended for women with vitamins and minerals and different things. But that range is just, like you were saying, to prevent disease and not so much to optimize health.
Yes, exactly.
So
that RDA paradigm really came out of World War II around a wartime mentality of how do we avoid a serious disease? How do we dose at a minimum level to avoid a disease like scurvy, like an extreme deficiency of a nutrient? It is generally a very minimalistic approach to nutrition. And what we find through the clinical research, it's really a mixed bag. So I'll give a couple of different nutrient examples just to show how disconnected the recommendation is from reality. So in the case of certain nutrients, I'll give the example of choline. There's an RDA level for choline, and choline is a nutrient that is super important for baby's brain development, among many other functions. But that's the primary benefit in pregnancy is is the support for baby's brain and neurodevelopment. So choline, there has been an RDA for choline for pregnancy and lactation since the early 1990s, so coming up on 30 years. And yet it took until our prenatal launched at the end of 2020 for a prenatal vitamin to dose at the full recommended RDA level. So that's an example where there is a recommendation. What's interesting is that newer research that just has recently come out shows that the RDA might be up to 2 times too low, that upwards of, so the RDA is 450 for pregnancy for choline, and that's in milligrams. Upwards of 900 milligrams can be extra supportive in pregnancy is what the latest research is showing. So that's a good example of where the more up-to-date research points to an RDA being too low. But it's, I think, like taking a step back, it's just helpful to understand that the most common dosage of choline in a prenatal vitamin is 0 milligrams. And then the second most common dosage is 55 milligrams. Wow. So that is
like way low.
At most, it's like 1/10 or 1/9 of the RDA level, which is half of what we're now seeing to be optimal. So we are really far away from optimal, you know, when we're talking about a typical prenatal vitamin. And so I think that's a really good salient example. Another one is a nutrient B12, which is super important for energy, but also for baby's DNA synthesis. Getting enough B12 is just absolutely critical during pregnancy. So the RDA level for B12 in pregnancy is 2.8 micrograms. That's a really small amount. There's clinical research showing that the RDA is at least 3 times too low, that 10 micrograms is a more appropriate dosage. But what we see in clinical practice, you might see this as well, is that practitioners need to dose women, even women who consume animal-based foods. And the most abundant source of B12 is things like, you know, grass-fed beef or really animal products. It's really difficult to get enough B12 through a vegan diet, even at baseline, even outside of pregnancy. But what we see through the practitioner in practice experience of our practitioners is that upwards of 200 micrograms, so that's 66 times the RDA, is actually needed to help women achieve an optimal B12 range, or at least avoid a deficiency. And there are many reasons why, from an individual, like once you get your nutrient levels tested, many women will actually need even more than that. But 200 is the baseline dosage that we landed on for our multi, based on this in practice experience of what's the kind of like safe baseline dosage that will work for all women to avoid a deficiency. So orders of magnitude different. And I like to just give those examples to show really in practice what is so different about Needed and the way that we dose. We're not just dosing based on the RDA. We're also not just dosing based on the clinical research, because there are issues with both of those, relying solely on both of those to determine what is optimal. Yeah.
So I'm wondering too, because I know people have asked me this too, and I wonder what you will say. What about taking like a liver capsule as your prenatal?
Yeah, so we had just recently addressed this on Instagram. Based on getting a lot of questions about it. So liver, beef liver, or animal, another kind of animal liver, can be a really abundant source of certain nutrients. It is often termed nature's multivitamin, and I think that's a little bit of a misnomer. Exactly. That's where a lot of this misunderstanding comes from. So it can be a really, really, really abundant source of the two of the nutrients we talked about. It can be high in B12. It can be high in choline. It's a great source for choline, and also for active vitamin A. But the challenge is that the dosing can be it's a naturally occurring food. So the dosing can be inconsistent. And in the case of choline, we're not super worried about an upper end of what you should consume, because you would need to consume a lot of liver to be exceeding that 900 milligram upper end, that's being shown through clinical research to be really supportive. But in the case of a nutrient like active vitamin A, we want some active vitamin A as opposed to the inactive form of beta carotene that you find in carrots and sweet potatoes and plant-based foods. But we want to be careful not to overdo it because it's a fat soluble nutrient. Your body stores it. Storing too much toxicity. Exactly. So we don't recommend, the other thing is it's not an abundant source of every nutrient. It's great for a couple nutrients, but it does not have everything that you need for the perinatal stage. So our recommendation when it comes to beef liver or another form of liver capsule is it can be a helpful addition to a prenatal vitamin in the same way that consuming beef or consuming some amount of beef liver can be helpful maybe a couple times a week, but we don't recommend relying on it as your prenatal vitamin because you're going to get too much of certain nutrients and not enough of others.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so with your prenatal, is the vitamin A is at the active form as well? So
we use a mix of the two forms of vitamin A. We use 50-50, so a 50-50 ratio of beta carotene, which is much more commonly found in a prenatal vitamin, and the active form of retinol palmitate. And we do this to maintain a really highly safe amount of the two. But again, what we see in practice is that if you don't supplement with retinol palmitate, the active form, you're very likely to be deficient. And active vitamin A is really important during pregnancy. I think because of the toxicity concerns, many companies and practitioners have shied away from it. But our approach is to dose it at a very modest amount, but enough to avoid a deficiency, and far, far, far lower than an amount that would be any concern for toxicity.
Yeah. So would you say, like, what if someone's taking your prenatal and also taking liver capsules?
There are some customers who benefit from doing that. My co-founder Ryan is one who will regularly take liver capsules in addition to a multi. But our recommendation in general would be to not do so every single day. That liver can be something to include, like you would if you were consuming it through food. Maybe a few times, one or two or a couple times a week, but not every single day, unless you're getting your nutrient levels checked and you're not exceeding an upper max of what you want when it comes to vitamin A. Exactly.
Yeah. And so can you show us your multi?
Yeah. So we actually have 3 different forms of our multi, our prenatal multi. This is the first form that we launched with. It's a powder-based multi. And what's awesome about powder is that you can dose at optimal nutrient levels and use the best nutrient forms that tend to be bulky. Talking about choline as an example, why is the most common dosage of choline in a prenatal 0 or 55 milligrams? It's because it's a really bulky nutrient. And so companies that are trying to deliver a 1 a day or a handful of gummies will leave it out. Which we think is a disservice because it's not like they're saying, paired with our choline, we offer a choline add-on. They're just completely leaving it out, but
cutting corners almost.
Exactly. Making you think that you're getting everything you need in a 1 a day. So powder's awesome for days that you make a smoothie. It's slightly sweetened with vanilla extract and with monk fruit. My favorite way to take it is in a smoothie. You can also put it in like a protein bite with our collagen protein.
I put it in yogurt.
Yogurt is a great way. You can put it in oatmeal. So it has a range of different uses, but I'd say in general, it's a really good option if you are not a pill taker and you want the most nutritionally complete option that we offer. Powder's a great choice. And then we also offer a capsule-based version of the multi. The standard dosing. So standard dosing is 2 scoops of powder. They're very small scoops. So, kind of 2 small scoops of powder in a smoothie or yogurt, or 8 capsules of the multi capsules. And you're going to get an equivalent dosage between the two. They're nutritionally identical if you take the same serving size, but 8 capsules can be a lot for some. Some days I'll take
once a day.
Say that again.
Is it 8 capsules once a day? Or
8 capsules once a day, or you can take, you can divide the dose, which is really a popular choice. So you could take 4 capsules in the morning and 4 in the afternoon, or 3 with breakfast, 3 with lunch, 2 with dinner. Another popular option is to take a half a dose of powder. So put half of this, one scoop in your smoothie, and then take 4 capsules in the afternoon. That's a good way if you don't want your smoothie to be too sweet, but you also
that makes sense.
don't want to take 8 pills a day. And then I don't have it in front of me, but we also offer a third multi-option, which is our multi-essentials. It's a capsule, 3 pills a day. So you can take them all together, or you can take one at each meal of the day. The reason we launched the multi-essentials is because some women, as we've, any of us who have been there through pregnancy, or at least the majority of us who have experienced pregnancy, know that nausea is real, especially in the first trimester. So we designed the multi really to be a great option to take a capsule in the first trimester. It's pared down dosing, but optimal nutrient forms of the same nutrients that are in the capsules or powder. So it's just a reduced dosing, but it has the right amount. And the key reason you would take the essentials instead of just like having your dosage of the multi is because we don't want to skimp on especially the amount of folate that is in our prenatal in the first trimester. In particular, that's when baby's neural tube is forming. Folate, we use the active form of methylfolate, is super important for that reason. So the multi-essentials has the same exact amount of methylfolate as is in the other 2 multi-options, but reduced dosing of all of the other nutrients. So you're still getting a highly, highly supportive amount of things like B6 and B12 and vitamin A and magnesium, but just a reduced amount versus what's in the other forms of the multi. So that's a great option if you are not a super big fan of taking many pills a day, and you're comfortable with taking a less nutritionally complete option, which I would say is totally fine at certain times of life. Like the first trimester, I took our essentials. I'm currently, a week away from my 3rd trimester. I took our essentials during my first trimester, and now in my 2nd trimester, I alternate between the capsules and the powder because I don't have nausea, and they feel more supportive to me in terms of my daily energy levels and things like that. But both are good options, and we want to give women choices, which is why we have the 3 different options.
Awesome. And so can you take that also if you're not pregnant, or do you take a different one?
Yes. So we recently just launched our women's multi, which is a comprehensive vitamin and mineral blend for women before and beyond the perinatal stage. So our recommendation, we have a suggestion on our website, which you can reference. But our recommendation is typically postpartum women should take the multi-powder capsules for an optimal amount of nutrition up to really, it's like while breastfeeding or up to 6 months postpartum, whichever is the greater of. And there's increasingly research showing that if you're breastfeeding for 2 years, you should stick with, the most optimal amounts during that time period and for a time period thereafter to make sure that you're able to replenish your nutrient stores after such a nutritionally demanding time. Postpartum is actually nutritionally more demanding than pregnancy, even the 3rd trimester, because if you're breastfeeding, especially because babies' needs continue to increase as they grow, and birth is, a depleting event, especially of nutrients like vitamin C. And so it's really, really important to stick with a high quality multi postpartum. But for those women who are beyond their child, kind of beyond their family planning years, if you feel like your family's complete and you're not looking to conceive another baby, our women's multi is a really awesome choice for that stage. And I should note that all of our multis are free of iron, so they're safe to take long term. Iron is a nutrient that many women will need at some point during pregnancy, but amounts vary significantly by individual and by life stage. So by that, I mean, you oftentimes don't need iron in the 1st or 2nd trimester. Many women will need it in the 3rd trimester. Sometimes you'll need it postpartum, but the amount can vary. So we offer iron separately from our multi. It's also better absorbed away from the other vitamins and minerals that you would find in a multi, especially calcium. Iron and calcium compete for absorption in the body. A lot of prenatals will just leave out calcium if they include iron. which is not optimal. And many women also struggle with digestive impacts from taking iron. So it's nice to have the iron at a different time of day than your multi for that reason as well. So that's all to say, all of our options are completely safe to stick with long term. You don't need to switch to a women's multi after pregnancy. But if you want something that is a little bit of a lower price point, a little bit fewer capsules per day, the women's multi is a great option for long-term use. You could take that for basically the rest of your life very safely.
Awesome. Yeah. Is there anything like with that you ever wanted to talk about, like with prenatal health, fertility, that you haven't been asked about, that you're like, oh, why are people talking about this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of the biggest questions we get, or I think one of the most, maybe the least well understood aspects of perinatal nutrition is that vitamin alone is cutting it, like that all you need is a prenatal. And if you take your prenatal, like prenatal is an insurance policy, and like with your diet and your prenatal vitamin alone, you're set. What we find is that it takes more than vitamins and minerals alone to optimally nourish you. And that's really why what Needed's really known for is our complete plan. It's a 4-part protocol. It's the prenatal vitamin that you saw, so powder, capsule, essentials, plus our collagen protein, plus an omega-3 and a pre and probiotic. And some prenatals will include an omega-3 with the prenatal. We don't. We include it separately because omega-3 is so prone to oxidizing, going rancid when it's mixed with vitamins and minerals. So it's really better for them to be 2 products side by side. We bundle them together so that it's not a fortune to buy the products in that way, but it really is optimal to have omega-3 separately from your multi because omega-3, the role of omega-3, it's a fatty acid. It's super important for baby's brain development. It's also has anti-inflammatory properties. But if omega-3 oxidizes and goes rancid, it's actually causing inflammation in your body. So we don't want that. If you're going to invest in taking an omega-3, and especially in the perinatal stage, you really want to make sure it's high quality. So anyhow, that's why our omega-3 is dosed separately. And then I think collagen, we were talking about this a little bit before the recording, but collagen is something that a lot of people know for the beauty benefits, like for your hair, nails, maybe even for gut health. The reason we include it for pregnancy is because protein needs in pregnancy are so elevated. You need upwards of 100 grams of protein a day for the standard woman. And some research shows you need like closer to 150 grams. It's really, really hard to get that much protein in your diet, especially if you have any kind of nausea or food aversions. And many women do. And many women have aversions for protein-rich foods like eggs or meat or sometimes dairy. So collagen is just a great clean source of protein, but it also contains amino acids that are conditionally essential during pregnancy. And what that means really is your body can't produce them. It needs to consume them through diet. That's what the term essential connotes in that context. And glycine and proline, which are 2 of the amino acids in collagen that are really important to pregnancy, they're not abundant in a plant-based diet. And this is coming from like a former longtime vegan, vegetarian, when we were first looking at formulating our complete plan, and our practitioner community and my co-founder were advocating for collagen. I was like, I don't know if I would take that. It's like total game changer. I really, really, really recommend it, even to those who have preferences to avoid meat, because it's a sustainable choice. You're not, it's basically utilizing a part of a grass-fed bovine that would otherwise be discarded. So I feel good about that from an ethical and sustainability perspective. And it's neutral tasting, and it's just a great way to up your protein at all stages, but especially pregnancy. The placenta is made up of collagen. You just don't want to be skimping on those nutrients.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is the pre and probiotic that we offer. And gut health is really important during all stages, but especially during pregnancy and postpartum, because the maternal microbiome impacts baby's microbiome. And that's the foundation of your baby's health and immune system for the rest of their life. We used to understand, and a lot of knowledge has come about in the last 10 years, 20 years. But the prevailing understanding is that your baby's microbiome is seeded through birth, and that's the first time that your baby experiences bacteria, and that the uterus is sterile. We now know that's not true, that the uterine environment is actually a microbiome in and of itself. So even if you birth via cesarean, via planned or unplanned cesarean, if you choose not to breastfeed or you don't breastfeed, your baby can still have the benefits of your microbiome during pregnancy. And that's why we want to support yours optimally through a pre and probiotic.
That's awesome.
So I know we're probably coming up on time, but
yeah,
those are the reasons that we designed a 4-part plan, and why we really advocate for a more is more approach, not a less is more approach during pregnancy.
Yeah, and we'll have links for everything on the description below, so check them out. Where can people find you? I know you're on Instagram, and where else can we find you?
Yeah, so we're on Instagram at Needed, and on our website at thisisneeded.com. So those are the 2 primary places to find us.
Awesome. Thank you, Julie, so much for joining us today. This is so helpful and super informative.
Thank you for having me. And we are a team of nutrition nerds. You can probably tell from the level we go into, but we try to make it approachable as well. So if you have any questions, please chat us or DM us on Instagram.
Thank you so much.